Answered in kind, 18. On fear, understanding, and the mark we keep missing. There is a peculiar reflex in the human animal. When confronted with what it does not understand, it recoils. The body tightens, the mind constricts, and language sharpens into verdict. What might have been approached with curiosity is instead met with condemnation. What could have been learned is declared forbidden, and what might have softened the heart is recast as a threat. This reflex is ancient, but it is not sacred. Consider how easily a practice as gentle as yoga is misconstrued. To stretch the body, to regulate the breath, to still the internal clamor. These are not acts of rebellion. They are acts of care. They are invitations into presence. And yet, in certain circles, yoga is declared sinful, foreign, dangerous, as though peace itself were suspect, as though silence were a Trojan horse, as though inhabiting one's own body with attentiveness were an affront to the divine. This is not discernment. This is misapprehension hardened into doctrine. And in a strange irony, this very misapprehension is a near-perfect embodiment of what the word sin once meant. Not moral corruption, not wicked intent, but hamartia, to miss the mark, to aim wide of center, to strike the air while insisting the target has been hit, to misunderstand, and then to double down with unearned certainty. The tragedy is not merely that the mark is missed, but that confidence is wielded as proof of accuracy. Astrology suffers a similar fate. Some declare it not of God, as though God were so fragile that symbols could threaten him. Yet, astrology, at its root, is a language, a symbolic grammar through which human beings have sought to describe cycles, patterns, inclinations, and meaning. It does not compel belief, it invites reflection. It does not dictate fate, it offers metaphor. It is no more inherently divine or demonic than mathematics, poetry, or music. It is a mirror, and mirrors only reveal what stands before them. What is often feared is not the practice itself, but the implication that meaning might be found outside a sanctioned channel. And so, rather than investigate, many condemn. Rather than listen, many label. Rather than understand, many retreat behind inherited prohibitions and call the retreat righteousness. This narrowing of perception has consequences. When people are trained to see evil everywhere, they inevitably begin to see it in one another. Brothers and sisters of the light, fellow human beings, are reduced to symbols of threat. Dialogue collapses into denunciation. Compassion is replaced by vigilance, and the very act of closing the ears and squeezing the eyes shut is mistaken for fidelity. Yet, what fidelity requires blindness? Those who are rooted in love, genuine love, not performative allegiance, do not need to obsess over darkness. If one is standing in light, what need is there to inventory shadows? If one abides in patience, compassion, understanding, and truth, what purpose is served by hunting for the devil behind every unfamiliar idea? Fear-based vigilance is not holiness. It is exhaustion with a halo. Much is made of the claim that the Bible is 100% true, but even this assertion is often a confession of misunderstanding. The scriptures themselves resist rigid literalism and warn against it. They speak in poetry, paradox, allegory, and layered narrative. They contradict at the surface precisely to provoke deeper inquiry. Translations diverge from original languages. Words drift. Context erodes. Meaning expands and contracts across centuries. To pretend that such a library can be reduced to flat propositions is not reverence, it is diminishment. And more curiously still, the Bible repeatedly warns against the very posture many adopt in its defense: unexamined certainty, hardened hearts, the substitution of rule following for love, the elevation of teachers over teachings. You search the scriptures, it says, thinking that in them you have life, but you refuse to come to life itself. This is not a rebuke of learning. It is a rebuke of learning used as a shield against transformation. We live in an age where entire compendiums of knowledge rest warmly in our palms, glowing softly, waiting to be consulted. And yet, ignorance is often chosen, not because information is unavailable, but because it feels threatening. Because to learn would require revising one's mental furniture. Because to understand would require humility. Because to listen might dissolve a certainty that once felt like safety. But there is no need to fear knowledge. That which is true cannot be destroyed by inquiry. Truth does not dissolve under scrutiny. It clarifies. It does not shrink when questioned. It expands. It does not fear the light. It is light. What disintegrates under examination was never truth to begin with. It was scaffolding mistaken for foundation. This is why discernment must be made paramount. Not suspicion, not condemnation. Discernment. The cultivated capacity to feel into something honestly and ask, how does this land in me? Does this constrict or expand? Does this invite presence or provoke fear? Does this move me toward love or away from it? The heart is not deceitful by nature. That too was a poor translation, a distortion that has done incalculable harm. The heart, unexamined, may be reactive, but examined, it becomes an instrument of exquisite perception. It knows when something brings peace. It knows when something generates fear, and fear, for all its utility as a signal, makes a terrible master. Judgment, condemnation, and the compulsive scrutiny of another's path are not marks of the serious student. They are distractions. curiosity, humility, and the willingness to remain teachable. These are the signs of one who is actually learning. And here we must speak plainly. Many have begun to worship the teacher instead of applying the teachings. They have mistaken affiliation for transformation. They have declared themselves saved in order to avoid the ongoing work of becoming loving. Religion becomes a shield, something to hide behind, rather than a lens through which to see more clearly. But learning does not stop because one wishes it to. Growth does not pause for comfort. Reality continues to instruct, whether one consents or resists. And love, the kind spoken of in the deepest currents of every wisdom tradition, is not passive sentiment. It is active attention. It is courage. It is the willingness to remain open when fear urges closure. So we arrive again and again at the mark so many have missed. Fear in one hand, love in the other. One constricts, hardens, isolates. The other expands, softens, and unites. One requires clenched teeth and perpetual vigilance. The other breathes. Ask yourself honestly, do you need to tense your body, narrow your mind, and harden your heart to share peace? Or have you been mistaking tension for truth, rigidity for righteousness, and fear for faith? The greatest commandment was never complexity. It was never control. It was never certainty at the expense of compassion. It was love. And love does not recoil from understanding. Love does not fear symbols, breath, bodies, or questions. Love listens. Love learns. Love remains open. That is the mark, and it has been there all along. Praise love and pass the compassion. The light speaks once and forever.